Recently, my 4-year relationship came to an end. It's been a challenging adjustment, stepping into a new chapter of life and figuring out what this new lifestyle means for me. Looking back, I wonder if my relationships with all my exes were just meant to be friendships, nothing more. Sometimes, even after a breakup, things feel unresolved. Despite agreeing to part ways, there's this odd in-between phase where it feels like we're still holding on to. You find yourself remembering the reasons you felt for the person in the first place, the first meeting, the laughter, the good times. But then, if you try to rekindle things, you're quickly reminded of why it ended in the first place. For me, part of this journey has been about reclaiming the independence I once had, relearning how to stand on my own 2 feet. Without even meaning to, I found myself reflecting on all my past relationships, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Through this reflection, I've realized I might have some advice worth sharing because, let's face it, most of us have experienced unhealthy relationship behaviors. Sometimes we're on the receiving end of those red flags. Other times, we're the ones holding the flag. It's rarely one-sided. So today, I want to share some of the red flags I've seen in my past relationships, both from my exes and from myself. Let's dive in.
At some point in my past relationships, I lost my independence. I used to enjoy solo travel, relishing the freedom and solitude. But over time, the idea of doing anything alone, especially traveling, started to feel boring, even scary. I wasn't always like this. Somewhere along the way, I became a version of myself that couldn't find happiness alone, nor did I even try. I remember after occasional meetups with friends, I would rush back home because I missed my boyfriend, even though we lived together. I just wanted to do everything with him, from big adventures to small mundane tasks. I thought this was love, but looking back, I see how stifling it was for both of us. Experts often emphasize the importance of maintaining a support system, friends, family, or any community you can rely on. And I see now how crucial that advice is. I wasn't giving him enough space to breathe, nor was I giving myself the same. When my boyfriend would spend time with his friends, I wouldn't act overly upset, but I would put on this subtle mask, a mix of jealousy and a silent wish that he would choose me instead. It was my way of pulling him away from his support system, trying to tether him more tightly to myself. I see now how unhealthy that dynamic was. Healthy love includes independence. It's about 2 people who love spending time together, but also remain connected to the people, hobbies, and passions they cared about before the relationship. If I had truly embraced this mindset, things might have turned out differently, but as the saying goes, it takes 2 to tango. One memory stands out. My boyfriend and I went to the beach, and I ended up getting a bit of a tan. He made a comment along the lines of, "You look beautiful. Your teeth will look even brighter when you're a little more tan." At the time, I brushed it off, but I couldn't shake the feeling it gave me, like a tiny thorn lodged in my mind. The comment made me feel icky. It wasn't outright mean, but it also didn't feel like a genuine compliment. Looking back, I see it as a red flag I tried to ignore. Instead of feeling uplifted, it left me questioning myself, stuck with this vivid image of how I should look to be considered beautiful in his eyes. The truth is, words matter. Compliments should feel warm and sincere, not layered with subtle criticisms disguised as flattery. If something feels off, it's worth addressing in the moment instead of letting it linger and fester. But at the time, I stayed silent, convincing myself it wasn't a big deal. In hindsight, I wish I'd trusted my instinct more. Let's talk about something that doesn't get much attention, the potential downside of how we as women sometimes interpret and act on the idea of empowerment. Don't get me wrong, women empowerment is crucial. It's about equality, fairness, and giving women the respect and opportunities they deserve. But sometimes in our fight against societal injustices, our anger can become misdirected. I've noticed, and I'll admit I've been guilty of this myself, that the frustration we feel toward the patriarchy and systemic inequalities occasionally gets taken out on the wrong people. And sadly, that can mean the innocent guys in our lives, boyfriends, guy friends, or even family members. Here's what I mean. There were times when I felt weighed down by all the societal expectations placed on me as a woman, the pressure to look a certain way, to act feminine but not too much, to be successful but not too ambitious. It's exhausting, and sometimes instead of addressing those feelings constructively or channeling them into systemic change, I would unload that frustration on the people closest to me. I remember snapping at my boyfriend for the smallest things, like when he would make an offhand comment about splitting the bill or suggest a plan I didn't like. In those moments, I wasn't reacting to him as a person. I was reacting to the bigger societal issues his words accidentally reminded me of. But he wasn't the one who created those issues. He happened to be standing there when my frustration boiled over. Or take my guy friends. Sometimes I would feel this underlying resentment toward them simply because their lives seemed easier. They didn't have to deal with catcalling or being talked over in meetings. They didn't have to constantly navigate the tightrope of being assertive without being labeled bossy. But instead of talking about these feelings openly, I would let it fester and sometimes distance myself from them, as though they were to blame for an entire system they didn't create. My misguided reactions didn't bring about any real change. If anything, they created unnecessary tension in relationships that could have been sources of support. Here's what I've learned. Empowerment isn't about shifting the blame or projecting our pain onto others. True empowerment is about self-awareness, open communication, and understanding where our anger is coming from. It's about using that energy to challenge the systems that hurt us, not the people who care about us. This doesn't mean excusing bad behavior or letting people off the hook when they contribute to the problem, but it does mean being intentional about where we direct our energy. Not every disagreement is a microcosm of the patriarchy, and not every man in our lives is a symbol of oppression. Sometimes they're just people, flawed, learning, and doing their best, just like us. Empowerment isn't about creating division, it's about building bridges between genders, generations, and even within ourselves. The more we approach it with empathy and clarity, the stronger and more united we become. And that to me is the true essence of empowerment. I used to have, and still sometimes have, a habit of expecting others to know what I want without ever saying it. It's something I've noticed in myself and many women, and it's a problem. But at the time, I didn't see it that way. When my partner didn't read my mind and anticipate what I wanted or needed, I would get snappy and frustrated. I thought being mysterious and hard to get would keep him interested, but now I understand that being interesting and being spicy are completely different things. What I've learned is that the real key lies in developing a secure attachment to myself. When you're secure, you don't feel the need to act out or create unnecessary drama. Sure, a little intrigue can be fun, but at the end of the day, you should strive to be someone who's easy to be with. That's easier said than done. Resentment can build over time. Resentment we might not even realize we're carrying. Instead of addressing it directly, we sometimes let it manifest in subtle ways, like switching into what I call crazy demeanor mode when we're with them. If there's one thing I've learned from reflecting on my past relationships, it's this. Love is about growth, not perfection. It's about being whole on your own and sharing that wholeness with someone else. When we're romantically competent, secure, and clear in our relationships, everything else in life seems to flow better. We're more confident, more trusting, and less worried about rejection. That speaks volumes about how vital healthy relationships are, not just for our emotional well-being, but for our mental and even physical health. I hope my experiences help you reflect on your own journey. The best lessons often come from the hardest moments.